Welcome to Life in Alberta and another season of the Average Albertan podcast. Yes, we are back for season 2, and we're going to start by talking about the offseason. What were the hot trades, the big moves that all the Canadian teams made? The NHL is back, and we're ready to go. Welcome, everyone, to another Average Albertan podcast. Number 5. We've already made it up to number 5, where we don't talk politics, we don't talk politically correct, we simply talk hockey. Hard, dedicated hockey fans from Canada, from Alberta, and you may recognize some of the guys on screen right now, but we also have a new guest to the podcast, not Albertan, but he's been to Alberta before, so that's close enough. So I'd like to welcome Ryan and Eric and Francois to the channel and to the podcast today. How are you guys doing? Let's start with Ryan today.
I'm not too bad. Looking forward to another NHL season. Looking forward to doing more of these.
Yeah, it's been a while. Our last podcast was on draft night, so it's been a couple months. We have a lot to cover today. And looking forward to your guys' analysis of the off-season moves. And how about Eric? Tell us a little bit about your off-season.
My off-season was great. I enjoyed, watching the Leafs trade away a goalie that they shouldn't have traded. That was great. The Oilers got better in goal. That's good too, as my Western team, I guess. Looking forward. This is a great time of year, right? October. I'm a CFL fan as well, so we've got football's coming to that kind of crunch. We've got hockey season starting, baseball, and now we're going to have the Jays playing some October ball. So life is very good. Yeah, indeed.
Excellent. Good. Yeah. And our newest member to the podcast, we have Frank, who is, of course, as you can see, a big times Habs fan. So tell the audience a little bit about yourself, Frank.
Yep. So I'm from Montreal, lifetime Montrealer, lifetime Habs fan. Not very good to be a Habs fan these days, but it is what it is. We have to deal with it. Other teams have gone through what we're going through right now. Off season has been interesting, and personally, I'm just getting over COVID. So I went 2.5 years without getting it, and finally bit me in the butt. So I might be on mute and coughing during this podcast.
All right.
And I remember the 8-loss season. I was 6-7 years old. And I listened to all the games because at that time you had radio and Saturday night TV games. So I've been following the Habs since mid-70s.
Cool. Yeah, that's that's kind of when I started watching hockey too. Was in the mid to late 70s when it was, of course, your team up against the better team in a lot of the playoffs. So it's good to have a Habs fan on board right here. And we won't relive those late 70s Stanley Cup playoffs because we all know the too many men on the ice was a cheesy call, and Montreal was the flavor of the decade for the 70s. So the Bruins have had their day since, but
well, at least if you had a Flyers cap on, at least you would have had something to talk about in the 70s.
Yeah, probably in the early 70s. Yes, that's for sure.
No, mid 70s. I got 2 cups.
Yeah. And I think they were up against a young run and gun team in the 80s in the finals at least once, where they could have had a third
the
one.
New York Islanders is who you're talking about. Is that who you're talking about? Or?
No, I think it's later when Hextall was the playoff MVP, even though the Flyers lost.
Yeah, what is that, giving a Conn Smythe to a losing team? Like, what kind of league is this where they give the losing players a big trophy?
Hey, Andre Dawson won the MVP for regular season with the last place Cubs, eh? So let's take a chill pill on that.
Yes, you can tell that we've seen our fair share of sports over the years, and I want to thank Frank for coming into the channel. I know he wasn't feeling 100%, but just like the 6th game of the Stanley Cup Finals, he suited up and he's here to give his input about the off season. Well, before we get going, just a couple little announcements. Is next Wednesday we will be doing our first live broadcast, and the live broadcast will be, of course, on the YouTube channel, where we will stream live. And if you have any questions as you're watching, want to ask a Montreal question or a Flames question or Oilers question, we're here to answer that. But we're going to give it a shot and go live next week. Opening night, Oilers will just be hitting the ice. And Eric, do you know who plays in the first game next Wednesday?
I'm gonna bet that it's my Leafs. I'm thinking, yeah.
And do you know who your Leafs play in their first game?
I believe it might be the Montreal Canadiens. Is that true?
Yeah, so that's going to be an interesting conversation, because games should be.
I don't know if these guys have ever played each other before, so it'll be very interesting.
What's the over under for that game? Whatever you go do, bet the over.
Yeah, exactly. It could be kind of.
It's gonna be a. It's gonna be a disaster.
It'll be a nice opener to talk about at the beginning of the episode, because that game will just be over, and it might be a 9-6 game. We'll see how that goes.
No. We're never gonna score 6 goals. Forget that. You got the 9 part correct, but not the 6 part.
Well, yeah, we'll see. You never know. I mean, it's a full moon coming up, I think, soon. So
I don't know. Suzuki's hurt, and we don't know what's going to happen with him. Forget it.
Let's leave your Canadian analysis till a little bit later, Frank. We got some other bases to cover here. Yep. So if anyone that's watching is an avid Flames fan, Jets fan, Canucks fan, or the 3 Senator fans that are out there, and you want to join one of our podcasts, let me know. Send me an email from the channel. You can find my email address. We'd love to have you. We're good-hearted, good Canadian hockey fans. And if you want to join the channel for an episode or 2, please reach out. Looking for kind of representatives of all the Canadian teams. All right, the first thing that we're going to look at with the offseason is what the most surprising moves were. What did you feel were the big moves that the teams made that kind of shocked you a little bit? It could have been a trade. It could have been a free agent acquisition, a waiver wire move. And let's start with our guest today. Let's start with Frank. What was your most surprising move of the offseason?
Yeah, I'll separate them between trade and free agent, because if you don't separate them, it's the Tkachuk trade that wins both categories. That came out of left field when you're under the gun to get Huberdeau, and then to sign Huberdeau, to get Uyghur, to get a first rounder that allows you to shed Monahan's salary. That was like out of left field. Surprised every expert. Uyghur is still not signed, but still, that made Calgary stay a contender. And the free agent is the Gaudreau signing. Everybody's waiting for Philly Islanders to shed salary. that's where he was supposed to go. That's why it took a while. And then out of left field, he signs in Columbus. Nobody wants to play in Columbus, but apparently Gaudreau does. So that was the biggest free agent surprise. Nobody had that on their radar. Uh, so all the jaws dropped. So that's why I separate the two, because the Kachuk trade is too surprising for what Calgary got. That would be first place. So I'll separate the two, because Gaudreau, nobody expected them Columbus to get Gaudreau at all.
Two really good choices there, Frank. And Ryan, let's go to you. What did you see as the most surprising, most shocking offseason move?
I have to agree with Frank with the Kachuk trade, but just to be different, the most surprising, or the second most surprising, I guess, for me would have been the Ottawa salary dumping Holtby onto the Maple Leafs.
Okay.
That just doesn't make sense to me for a team that's supposed to be chasing a cup, for a guy who was the third string for Ottawa last year for the better part of the season. I don't get it. It's a big surprise. I don't know what their plan, especially since they let the number one goal they walk for $250,000 more a year. Doesn't make sense.
Okay. And moving on to Eric, in terms of your most kind of surprising move, what did you see as kind of the big shocker of the offseason?
To be brutally honest, I'm going to go Oilers, and I'm going to say Kane signing. Didn't see it. Thought he'd go sexy. Thought he'd go New York, somewhere else. I know he had success in Edmonton and perhaps even resurrected his career. But generally, as a longtime Edmontonian, that's when guys leave. They don't stay. And now I've since heard a radio broadcast about him, like he was being interviewed by a local sports guy, and he said, have you been here in the summer? And Kane at that point said, yeah, we were putting up like tinfoil on our windows because it's so light during the summer. And the broadcaster said, yeah, our summers are quite nice and so on. And he said, well, I don't plan on being here very often in the summer. So it's not the sexiness of Edmonton that has drawn him. I think it's the chance to really produce. And so I was surprised. I truly thought Kane would not sign in Edmonton. I would have bet money on it. And so when that actually came true, I thought good for the Oilers. I hope, because he also self-destructs a little bit. But that was, to me, that would qualify. I agree with Ryan that it made no sense to me that the Leafs let Campbell walk for such a low price. But we'll get to that eventually, I assume, and I have lots to say about that. But Kane signing was the one for me.
Okay. And let's talk now about maybe the best offseason move, the move that maybe helped the team the most, that not necessarily surprising, but is really going to improve that franchise. And we'll go back to Frank. What did you see as the best off-signing season or trade by a team this last summer?
I'll piggyback on the Kane signing. I also was surprised. And Kane is basically burnt in the league. So you sign for nothing in Edmonton. And it doesn't have to do with the sexiness of Edmonton. It's the sexiness of McDavid. So he signed for 4 years. Great signing from the Oilers. Got him cheap. He's probably going to score 40 goals this year. Find me any other 40 goal scorers that are a $5 million cap hit. So that's the most significant. The problem in Edmonton was always to have wingers to play with McDavid. A little bit like Crosby. These guys are so good, they can't the wingers don't have their IQ to follow them on the ice, and that was always Sydney's problem. And McDavid had that problem, and that's why they put Draisaitl with him, because Draisaitl was the only one that could follow him on the ice. And now this allows them to split Draisaitl and McDavid on two lines, because Kane, he's fast. He's a north-south player. Let McDavid bring the puck up, do his magic, and just have your stick on the ice and be the sandpaper. So that to me was the most key signing. Campbell, yes, but he's still not as proven. Kane, he's money, and he's going to be a 40-goal scorer with McDavid.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. And Ryan, how about you? What franchise benefited the most from a signing or trade this offseason?
I have to go with Calgary. They were down and out. They were looking at rebuilding, and they trade one player to replenish a player they lost to free agency, and they get a top 3 defenseman and a first-round pick. It's they went from looking at a rebuild to at least battling to be the best in the division. So I'd say Tree Living, when he was down and out, he pulled a rabbit out of the hat, and Calgary's looking better than they did last year.
And that first rounder is important because it allowed them to shed Monahan and sign Kadri. We're not talking about Kadri, but Kadri is great to see over there. So it's like this whole Kachuk trade.
Not as an Edmonton fan, he's not great to see down there.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that having that first rounder, then giving that to Montreal for Monahan, that allows them to sign Kadri.
Yeah.
And nobody saw Kadri going to Calgary at all.
Well,
Again, Island.
He rejected a trade there a few years ago from Toronto.
Exactly. So that's why everybody was waiting for Lamoriello to shed salary in the Islanders. Everybody's thinking he's going to the Islanders like Gaudreau, plan B. So I agree. The trade allowed a domino effect that puts Calgary in a very good position.
Okay. And how about you, Eric? Which franchise made the best move, or which player?
You know what? I'm going to go with Calgary as well. I think as an Edmontonian, there was a little bit of a giggle for a week and a bit when they lost they lost their 2 guys. They're like, oh, yeah, we don't want to play here, and I'm like, yeah, excellent. And then boom, right? And then, as was mentioned, Kadri's an upgrade, I think, considerably, because one, he's tough. He's tough in the playoffs. I mean, he's done some stupid things, as every Toronto Maple Leaf fan knows, and probably why he's not a Leaf today is because of those, not just one, but a couple playoff moves that just hurt us, to be brutally honest. But I hope he's matured. He's won a Stanley Cup now. And yeah, good on Calgary. Good for Edmonton too, because it's going to be a battle, and it's going to be hard, and harder than last year. Last year was exciting and all that, but we had some soft players. They were soft. I don't care. Johnny Ohio was soft, and good on him. He can go to Ohio and take his 5'2" frame or whatever it is, and goodbye. Calgary got better, and they're going to be tough. And Oiler fans, yeah, they'll be okay, but that's going to be interesting. And God bless Calgary. Good on them for doing what they did.
Okay, yeah, we're seeing a lot of Calgary love tonight. That's for sure.
I don't go that far. I don't call it Calgary love. I'm just saying.
Calgary realism.
Well, I'm glad you're on, Frank, because that's going to bring a few more Flames fans to our channel. Because we were pretty much rose-colored glasses with the Oilers for the first few episodes. So, yeah, Flames fans, we do celebrate you as well. So looking around the league, then kind of some of the other big trades that happened since the draft. Detroit picked up Ville Husso, another goaltender. They all, they recently picked up LiQWYD from Carolina, so they've got a couple of young goalies in the system now. Unproven for sure, but Detroit's still rebuilding, and I think they're going to be good. I think Detroit, give them 5 years, and with that defensive core and some of their young players up front, Raymond and Larkin still fairly young enough, they're going to be, I think, a good team in the East in 5 years. But again, we'll talk about predictions in the next episode. Jersey picks up a goalie as well, Vanacek. Washington completely retooled their goaltending, getting rid of both Samsonov and Vanacek.
That was a surprise on the other end for Washington to just throw their hands up. 2 goalies under 25 and give up on both of them, and basically gift them to Toronto and New Jersey. That was shocking. Maybe you expect one to be gone, but they have Charlie Lindgren, 5 games total NHL experience. You would think they would have kept one of their 2 kids to go with Kuemper, but that was shocking in what transpired with their 2 goalies in my head.
Yeah, I think maybe they're just, putting their eggs into the Kemper basket and saying, hey, he won a cup. He's one of the best goalies in the league when he's healthy. And but Frank, isn't that kind of the motto for Washington? They always seem to get rid of their young goalies. Who else recently?
They got rid of Holtby at the proper time.
Yeah. Holtby was definitely, that was a good move by Washington at the right time. But they had Neuwirth. He didn't really pan out to be too much. He was typical backup goalie. And who was the other goalie they had around the Neuwirth time? Neuwirth. Do you remember who that was? Another young goalie.
I know who you're talking about, but I don't have the name off the top of my head.
Yeah, but they've kind of been a goalie carousel, kind of like Philadelphia is known for over the years.
Phoenix Copley. He's out west. Yeah, he's out west now. So
right.
He was actually great numbers in the AHL, but never got a chance. Samsonov came in and just blew by him, basically.
Yeah, and then Samsonov left. Philadelphia picks up Tony DeAngelo. Now, Tony DeAngelo is one of these players that, there's a lot of rumors, and some of them are probably fact, that he's not really a good teammate. And he's moved around. He was in Carolina last year. He was with the Rangers before that. Now, going to the Philadelphia organization, he's definitely going to help on the power play. But what's he going to do for team chemistry? So that's going to be an interesting move. I mean, they didn't give up a first rounder, which is good on Carolina. They did give up 3 other picks, though. He's definitely going to help their power play, but the chemistry is always a big issue.
Yeah, but don't remember who's coaching there now.
Yeah.
He's not allowed to start doing his stupidities that he did with the Rangers with Quinn, who was a young coach who lost control of that room. Torts doesn't lose control of any room.
Yeah. Torts is, he may be the coach that DeAngelo needs at least for a year. So that's going to be one to watch. Nashville, San Jose make a deal. Kunin going to San Jose. Leafs acquire Matt Murray. And again, kind of a... Eric, we'll talk about this now because it's in the trade section here. Tell us a little bit about Matt Murray and his role with the Leafs.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but he's won a Stanley Cup, right? That means going beyond one playoff round.
He won 2 Stanley Cups.
Oh, my God. 2. Oh, geez. So, he's got 1 ring for both hands. You know what? He was quite injured in Ottawa. So I think, and certainly he had fallen off before that. I know that. But last year in Ottawa, he did suffer some injuries. Certainly he's had an okay preseason. But the problem with preseason in the NHL is similar in some ways, except in the NFL it's even worse. But they play their kind of top lines at home, but of course they're playing against really, in essence, an AHL team because what's being sent is not the top line for the teams that they're playing at home, and vice versa. The Oilers did the same thing, a couple of losses in well, there was a Seattle loss, and can't remember who else they lost to, but it's preseason. But away, they don't play their big guys, and then at home they do. So I mean, yes, he's had a good Murray's had a good kind of, when you read the kind of local stuff from Toronto, it's been okay, and that's promising. But we'll see what happens, right? I mean, I think the hope is it's by committee when it comes to the Leaf goaltending. But I just don't know too many Stanley Cups that have been won by committee when it comes to that kind of goaltending. And you need a number one. You certainly need a number one, and a clear number one by the playoffs. And so I'll be brutally honest. Yeah, I'm fearful of that. I liked Campbell. He was starting to come into his own, but rumor has it he's just he's really good in the room, and certainly was well respected in the community. So, I mean, remember, this is the same team that traded Rask. So, I mean, we're not good on goaltenders when it comes to keeping good ones. Yeah, so we'll see what happens. We've got really good offense. Have I told you that? They've really really good.
Yeah, such good offense. They want to try more on defense.
That offense.
Yeah, I think as Frank mentioned earlier.
Yeah, well, because he's.
I think the question is though, why not pay this? I don't know what the contracts are, but why not pay the same money to keep Jack Campbell rather than giving future considerations to Ottawa?
Toronto's saving, I think, just $250,000 on that.
Yeah, your son said that earlier, that was a head scratcher that Ottawa was able to dump Murray, but Dubas is basically, he knows if he doesn't win in the playoffs, if he doesn't win, he's gone. So he went all in poker. He goes, Murray won 2 cups. He won a cup before he was a rookie, because he dislodged Fleury in the playoffs. So he actually won 2 cup. So he goes, well, I'll gamble on the magic of Murray to save my job. Because if they go out in the first round again, the whole leadership team in Toronto's gone.
Yeah.
And what's Marner have left? A year before he could go UFA?
Well, Matthews is coming up also. Yeah, Matthews is coming up, and they'll just get rid of everybody and probably go back to hiring Mark Hunter, which they probably should have done to begin with. So we'll see, but he's basically going all in, and hoping he doesn't get injured, because to me, Campbell is a better goalie than Murray, bar none.
Okay. All right. Well, let's jump ahead, guys, and talk about some of the individual teams that in Canada specifically that made some moves. And we're going to start out east. We're going to start with the Ottawa Senators and some of the moves that they made. And I'm just going to kind of go through since free agency on July 13th and kind of show you some of the players that they picked up. And then I'll go to each of you and ask you for your comments on 1 or 2 of the players that you think might be a good fit for Ottawa. So right on the first day of free agency, Ottawa picked up Claude Giroux. Again, for me, that was kind of a little bit of a shocker that Giroux would choose to go to Ottawa. Norris was re-signed to an 8-year deal at about an $8 million cap hit. So big money going to Josh Norris. Eric Brandstrom, again, was, I think, acquired in an Anaheim deal. Supposed to be the next up-and-coming defenseman. Hasn't really panned out, but he's still fairly young. Stützle, an 8-year deal, over $8 million cap hit, and a few other minor signings, but nothing other, major other than probably Giroux was their biggest signing.
Now, so by the way, Branston was the Mark Stone trade with Vegas.
Oh, to Vegas. Okay. It was to Vegas. So Ryan, what do you see in terms of the Ottawa moves? Anything kind of stand out there for you? Anything that kind of piques your interest?
Well, you look at how they enforced their will on Toronto. You would think that Ottawa made the playoffs last year and Toronto missed the playoffs. I want to go back to the draft and just talking about Alex DeBrincat. Sure, he's a smaller guy, but he's a center and he's a great player. Claude Giroux is going to give you that good veteran presence. He's never won anything, but you're going to get that presence anyway. He's been around long enough. I think Stützle signed long term. Tkachuk. I mean, I think Brady Tkachuk's better than Matt Tkachuk. I think Ottawa is going to be a force to be reckoned with this year. I think they're going to catch a lot of teams by surprise. And I know I've been kind of picking at Toronto fans a little bit lately, kind of saying I wouldn't be surprised if Ottawa finishes ahead of Toronto this year.
Okay. Well, let's go right to Eric then. And Eric, what do you think about the Ottawa moves in the offseason?
Truly, I'm, as a Canadian, it's nice to see Canadian teams improve. I didn't like Ottawa being at the bottom of where they were, and for that, same with Montreal. I'd like Montreal to, and they're coming, but it's not going to be happening as fast as Ottawa this year anyway. So, I think it's I'd bet a lot of money on Ottawa being better than Toronto, like a lot of money. But at the same time, they have made some improvements. Giroux, you know what? He didn't do much in Florida. So as far as I'm concerned, I thought that would be a pretty good signing. I wasn't very impressed with him down there, perhaps, and he signed in Ottawa. It's closer to home, all that kind of stuff. It's all lovey-dovey and all that. I think he's an older veteran, and perhaps that will help, and that's good. And I know we're not doing predictions, but when we do, that's a really tough. Oh my God, it's a tough division that we're in, and lots of teams are coming up, and that's good. It's a very competitive division. So we'll see what happens.
Okay. And Frank, you're closer than the rest of us to the Ottawa situation. What are you hearing? What do you think about their moves in the offseason?
What we didn't see was a trade, the Cam Talbot trade. They sent Philip Gustafsson to Minnesota for Cam Talbot. He's hurt for 5 to 7 weeks now, but you can't control that. So that was important because then Forsberg had some help in goal because Murray was not that help last year because he was always injured. So that combined to DeBrincat and Giroux. And the funny thing is Stützle is playing with the two newbies. So their first line stays intact from 2 years ago because last year with injuries, Batherson, Tkachuk, and Norris didn't play a lot together, but that's the first line. They have chemistry already. And now the second line with Giroux. Giroux's the vet who's going to calm everybody down. And then you get to the third line with Pinto. He's going to center that third line with Joseph. And you see the defense. If Sanderson makes the team with Shabbat and all that, they're going to be a tough out in their division. So, it's sneaky what they did. Get rid of Murray, get Talbot. So kudos to Ottawa. They're many years ahead of Montreal. It happens, but the good thing is Dorion, everybody was saying, what is this guy doing? He's not doing anything. He's not spending his money. Oh, it must be Melnick, the cheap bastard. He's not spending his dollars, blah, blah, blah. But he was just waiting for his youngsters to develop, and now he pounced. He got DeBrincat for nothing. I don't care if it's first, second, and third rounder. That's a $5-6 million contract, I think, for RFAs. When you sign an RFA, it's nothing. Like Kotkaniemi, that's what he cost. who would you pick, Kotkaniemi or DeBrincat? Asking the question is answering it. So Dorion, great 2 years with the moves he's done, and more power to Ottawa. And the more we have these Canadian rivalries, the better it is for us fans, because now you have Calgary and Edmonton in a dogfight. And if Ottawa can come up to Toronto and have the Ontario dogfight, it's going to be great TV, and then everybody can beat up on us. Revenge for our 20 some odd cups.
Yeah, and you mentioned Cam Talbot, and since he was an Oiler at one time, you kind of feel for him because he was playing really well in Minnesota, and then of course they made the move to get Fleury, and Fleury took the starting position in the playoffs, and Cam Talbot's days in Minnesota were quickly coming to an end. So,
yeah, Gary said he wasn't going to trade him, but Talbot basically probably said that you want to see a 5-hole open up, keep me on your team, because he basically got the shaft with Fleury coming in, because his stats were awesome last year. He made Minnesota compete and make the playoffs, which nobody expected Minnesota to make the playoffs. Yes, Kaprizov had the great year, but it was Talbot, because he was steady in goal, and his reward was bring in Fleury and give him the starts. So Talbot said, I want to go, and Guerin got PO'd during an interview and says, I don't care, I'm going to keep him. But I think Talbot made him say, look, I'm 35, I'm going to be red light Rasico if you keep me here. So, and then Ottawa, perfect trade for them, because they have Matt Sogard as a young developing AHLer, so they could afford getting rid of Philip Gustafsson. They bring in the veteran presence. So great on Dorion. He was like the sleeping giant waiting to pounce.
Yeah.
And now you can see he's spending the money now at the right time.
Yeah. It's like I said, too bad. Talbot, I think, was, Vezina candidate, playing really well, probably having the best year of his career. And then, they made a move that they felt would get him closer to the cup, and it didn't work out for them too well. All right, let's move on to the team that probably gets the least recognition in Canada, and that is the Winnipeg Jets. So Winnipeg, in terms of their offseason moves, I think more of it was rumor and speculation and, kind of controversy rather than big players. They did re-sign Dubois for 1 year for $6 million. A few minor kind of signings. They brought in kind of a backup goalie for Hellebuck and Appleton, Gustafsson, and of course the Oiler, Sam Gagner, in round number, I guess, 4 for Sam. He's been on Detroit. He's been with Edmonton. Was he in Phoenix? Where out west was Sam Gagner?
Yeah, I think he was in Phoenix.
Played for Did he get Vancouver? Like he was playing for Vancouver, right? Did he play for the Canucks?
Yeah, he's played for quite a few teams since he left Edmonton. All right, Ryan.
He was the young Oiler start, right? Sorry to interrupt, but just Gagner, like we're talking back. Who's the? So he was very young when he came to the Oilers. As an 18-year-old, and they signed him and they started playing him. But I'm trying to think of, he just recently won a Stanley Cup with Colorado. And he's known as a really nice guy. Yes, there we go. And he too came up at the same time. So they were the stars of the Oilers back in the dark ages, I guess, when the Oilers weren't really doing much. So anyway.
Yeah.
Little Sam Gagner, a little bit of love. Actually, he was getting love from Oiler fans too. They were hoping he would sign here, I think. Didn't. But
Ryan, any Jets comments? I mean, we probably won't spend a lot of time on the Jets.
I mean, not so much for their. Well, I don't know. They have Hellebuck. You can't really count out a team when they have Hellebuck on the back end. But they stripped the captaincy from what's his name again? Wheeler. Stripped it from Wheeler and never even replaced it. So there's something wrong going. There's something going on there. I think Edmonton maybe shipped some bad water down to Winnipeg. The coach called out the veterans in the media after a preseason game. Was it last week? I mean, they're hurting. They need to figure out some stuff. They seem to have the right coach in there this year to be able to call them out. There's whispers that Dubois maybe wanted to go to Montreal, stuff like that. It's just, I don't know. Winnipeg's turned into a bit of a mess after being so promising a couple years ago. They're trending down, and it's sad to see.
Okay,
they're kind of like the team that everybody in Canada doesn't mind.
Nope. They don't really. Not a lot of people hate them, and not a lot of people love them, unless you're from the Winnipeg area, probably.
Yeah.
Frank, what do you think about the Jets' lack of moves and controversy?
Well, I disagree that they have the right coach. Bonus was a disaster in Dallas. 67. I don't know. He's never won. He's doesn't play the kids. What he did to Tufte or whatever I think his name is, the kid came up for an NHL game from the AHL, spent all his per diem, all his money, his one game salary, buying tickets for his family, borrowed money from his teammates to get all his tickets for friends and family. And then bonus, didn't dress him, didn't even tell him. He found out when he saw the sheet. So that's bonus. So, yeah. So, yeah, not the right coach. Too many younger guys, and see what he did with Wheeler. Just strips him of the captaincy. It's like, no, he's not the right coach. Problem with Winnipeg is their window is past.
Yeah, but from what I heard, Wheeler was asking maybe for a trade out.
Yeah, but you wait. You don't strip a guy. You don't do that. If you do, replace him right away. So I don't know. It's just that's bonus 101. And the problem in Winnipeg is their window was a couple of years ago, and what killed them was Big Buff just decided to fish instead of playing hockey. Losing a number one D, we saw what happened to Montreal losing a number one D when number one G. It hurts. Big Buff was such a specimen. He dominated from the back end. It was so big, so good, and that's what killed their window, basically. They couldn't recuperate. Their D was never the same because everybody was slotting upwards in the wrong position. And they have great players, Connors, Ehlers, but their window is basically closed. Dubois is not going to stay long term. That's why he signed 1 year. But they're in trouble. It's not a great place where people want to go. But look, what Winnipeg needs to do by mid-year, if they're still in the playoff hunt out west, is get a guy like Taze, local boy who's going to clean up that room. He knows how to win. He's won 3 times. He's from Manitoba. He's going to have instant respect in that room. And rumors are the room is not healthy over there. He would instantly resolve all that. So if I'm Cheveldayoff, that's what I'm working on. Chicago keep half the salary and bring in Taze mid-year to make the push for the playoffs if they can.
Okay. Yeah. And again, one of the best goalies in the league, and just a goalie can take you far. I mean, the goalie Hellebuck can take them to the playoffs. I think like you said, I think if they can fix the room a little bit, then they'll be in much better shape. Well, let's head out to the West Coast and start with Eric this time with the Vancouver Canucks. Well, Vancouver picked up Curtis Lazar in Edmonton, Oil King at one time in his junior career. Again, a few guys that probably not a lot of people heard of. They did re-sign Miller for 7 years, $8 million, big signing. There was a lot of rumor and speculation that he might be shipped out of Vancouver. He had a great season last year with the Canucks. Anything, Eric, that you kind of want to talk about with the Canucks?
Well, generally, I mean, their goaltending is very good. I think that's something that's coming. Certainly, Hughes on defense is a very decent defenseman. Um, and they've got some potential. I think they're going to be more competitive than they were last year. Um, uh, However, I still think they have a ways to go, and injuries can derail something very quickly, especially when it's as fragile as when I look at Vancouver's roster. It's not a super amount of depth. I mean, they're fine, but at the same time, they're suspect to that, and it's a very long season. So the Canucks, yeah, they've got they should be okay. They should be competitive, but I don't think they're going to be in the Calgary or Edmonton atmosphere, even close to it. Um, but who knows, right? They've got a coach that pushed them considerably, um, uh, and achieved more than what people thought he could. So now he's going to start the season. We'll see what happens, and it's a possibility. Personally, I'd love to see Vancouver in the playoffs, but that's because, again, I want all the Canadian teams as possible. But I can't see it. I really can't. So yeah, they're doing okay, but it's not going to be their year this year.
Yeah, and as we talk about Vancouver, they're playing a preseason game right now against the Oilers. We talked about the Jets. The Jets are currently beating up on the Flames 5-0 in a preseason game. So, but it's just a preseason. I mean, sometimes we draft players in fantasy leagues based on the preseason, and it doesn't turn out very well. I know I've done that many times. So. Be interesting to see how Vancouver does. Anything, Ryan, you want to add with the Canucks?
No, I think they have all the right high-end pieces. They just need to fill out the bottom half of the roster. I think their goalie is top 10 in the NHL in Demko. I think they're there from being a good team to a great team. They just need to get some more solid depth. And they have Bruce Boudreau, who just whatever it is, he just gets his teams into the playoffs, and sometimes that's all you need is just that chance to get in. So it'll be interesting to see. I think they'll be just on the outside looking in, but we'll see. I think they'll have a good season either way.
Okay. And Frank, what's your opinions about the signing of Kuzmenko, Ekman Larson coming in on the D, a couple other little moves they made as well in the last year? Where do you see the Canucks?
GM, I don't know what he's doing. It's like, are you rebuilding or are you contending?
Mm-hmm.
Ekman Larson, Myers, they have one of the most expensive Ds in the league for almost no output. Hughes is great, but he plays one way. He sucks in his own zone. And his problem is the same problem Erik Karlsson had until he was matched up with Matot. He needs that partner, that rock, where he can go and be his you self. And there is no Mark Matot on the Canucks, and that's where Erik Karlsson had his best years. So still waiting for that. Ekman Larson is not it. Tyler Myers is not it. It's like they have all these rejects. Kuzmenko, good signing. A lot of teams were interested. It's boom or bust with him. That'll help the wing, because down the middle, Pedersen, Miller, Horvat, they're great at the middle. It's just Baser, disappointing, always injured. Hagendler, same thing. He's smallish. They have no wingers, and it's like I don't understand. They don't seem to know how to build a team where you have pieces that fit together. They have pieces, but they're from different Jenga puzzles. So great. I agree with everyone. Demko, great goalie. He'll steal games for them. Quinn Hughes, awesome when he goes towards the opposite net, basically, and that's it. But he'll be a minus $1 billion as usual. So it's going to be tough for Vancouver. They could squeeze in because the West has a lot of teams that are bubble-ish, unlike the East. To make the playoff in the East, you look at New Jersey, etc. It's like you have to unseat a great team. In the West, not so much. Minnesota, with what happened in the offseason, it's not as hard. So Vancouver could squeeze in. I hope they do. But it's like everybody says, they're like, okay. They have good top end, but they don't have the surrounding cast, basically.
Yeah, and probably one of the smallest teams up front, as you mentioned. A lot of really small forwards. Connor Garland's another one. I actually like Connor Garland. I think he played really good with the Coyotes. He's played well with Vancouver. Really good second, third line player. But yeah, bubble team definitely. All right, let's head to Calgary. Now, Calgary is a team we've talked about a little bit already. So I don't know if we need to add too much. We talked about Huberdeau. We talked about the Tkachuk trade, Kadri a little bit. So we'll just go around to each of you guys and is there anything else you kind of want to add about the Flames moves? Not so much how they're going to do this year. That's for next week. But in terms of the moves and team building, coaching staff, those kind of things. We'll start with Eric. What do you think about the Flames?
I certainly like them, but I think it's going to take some time to gel, right? Those players are going to. So the Oilers are ahead in that sense because, of course, their core was even here last year, and that includes Kane, and went through the playoff run and so on and so forth. So they're coming. They're going to be fine, but I think October and November are going to be tough months for Flame fans because it's going to take a little bit of time for that forward group to gel. They're going to be defensively strong. That won't be a problem. The defense is going to be okay. So when they win, it's not going to be sexy. It's going to be the 2-1s. It's going to be low scoring, but it will build. But the first couple of months, I think the Flames they're going to be fine, but it's not going to be as fine as what they'll be experiencing in March and April or even February. So,
okay, yeah, makes sense. Frank, Flames.
Yeah, I'll add one thing. The first line is probably gonna be less good than they were last year. Toffoli is the forgotten man. He's going up to the first line, but he's no Tkachuk. But he can pot 30 goals. But Huberdeau is probably a better passer than Gaudreau. And then the center is okay. The upgrade is on the second line with Kadri. And that's where they have two lines that have to mesh. Unlike Ottawa, which we mentioned earlier, where the two newbies are playing with Stutzle. Here you have newbies on the first two lines, and depending on who makes the team, maybe the third line. So yeah, it's going to take a while to mesh. Uyghur is underrated addition because Rasmus Anderson was not a number one defenseman. He was forced into that position when Giordano left. So that makes everybody slot in. Killington, Hannafin, they're all slotting into their correct positions. Uyghur can play 25 minutes. So that's an underrated. People don't realize when a team loses a number one, when you have your 2 playing 1, your 3 playing 2, your 4 playing 3, it messes them up. They can't handle the workload. We saw it in Montreal. Petrie produced great, replacing Weber when he was injured. But when there was no Weber, his season was awful. But it goes down. The three playing two is not playing well, etc. And Rasmus has offense, etc. But now being a number two guy, and Hannafin Killiting being 3-4, whatever they slot in, and then that allows your last pair to be what they are. So I think Uyghur is going to be the hidden card. Hopefully they re-sign him. If they re-sign him, they win the trade hands down. If they don't, they still win the trade, but not hands down. So, like Huberdeau signing within what, a week? Everybody went, wait, what? Because again, with Dubois coming to Montreal, everybody said he's not going to stay. He's going to come home to Montreal. But no, and that's the type of guy Huberdeau is. He's a character guy. We talked about the softness. He's not soft. He'll go through the end board to win. And that's more power to Calgary having Huberdeau instead of Gaudreau. So I think everything is looking up basically for Calgary. They kept their tandem, Vladar, kid they got for Boston for free. Great number two, played well when Markstrom hasn't been playing. They're probably going to lighten the load for Markstrom so he's fresher in the playoffs. I don't know. It's like, to me, Calgary had the best off season. I said it when we started. Kadri, it's like everybody said the contracts are all awful. They're all going to age terribly. But who cares? Their window, like we said, Winnipeg's window is closed. Well, Calgary's window is open now for the next 3 years. So having Kadri, having Huberdeau, hopefully having Uyghur, having Markstrom on all those contracts, it's all about the next 3 to 4 years for Calgary. Then their window closes. They have an overpaid guy. They can buy them out, whatever they do for the rebuild. It's their time is now. So they had to give those contracts out to remain competitive now.
Well, and talking, Frank, about contracts that age well, Calgary does have Milan Lucic on the team as well.
It's his last year this year, eh? That's $7 million going off the books.
Yeah, that
finally,
James Neal, Lucic. There's been a lot of contracts that haven't aged well over the years, and I hope GMs are getting a little bit smarter. Huberdeau, 8 years. I don't see anything wrong with that. Mangiapane, I think, fairly good deal, almost $6 million for 3 years. But Ryan, you're on now. You thought Calgary was, maybe not make the playoffs in our last episode. What are you thinking now?
I think they're definitely a contender for the division. I don't know if I can add much more than what Frank and Eric have already said. But I guess the only thing I could say is I'm happy that Markstrom plays good against every team in the NHL except for the Oilers. So we can hold on to that hope for 3 games this year.
Yeah, I really do hope Calgary and Edmonton meet up again in the playoffs at some point. Markstrom, to me, is probably the biggest question mark. Even in Vancouver, Florida, he'd play brilliantly and then just stink the place out from time to time. So just not getting that consistency during the regular season, yes, but he hasn't really been that playoff performer as a goaltender. And I think that's going to be one of the keys to Calgary's success. Well, let's move on to...
Hold on. I got to just say that at least they had a regular season goalie, unlike the Oilers.
Yes, we do have a Calgary defender. All you Calgary fans, you can email Frank at franklovescalgary@gmail.com.
I know, because Holland brought his philosophy from Detroit to Edmonton, but there's no Yzerman, there's no Fedorov, there's no Lidstrom on Edmonton. You can't win with an Osgood in Edmonton, and we all saw the proof of that. So finally they did something, but I'm just saying it's easy to criticize Markstrom, but at least they had a Markstrom.
Yeah. And see, if you could put Calgary and Edmonton together, dynasty for many years, I think. All right, let's move. Speaking of dynasties, let's move on and talk about the dynasty that Frank has followed for many years, and the Montreal Canadiens. So, Frank, what is the scoop in Montreal and the moves that they've made?
It's all about the picks, baby.
Okay, before you start, Frank, was like Slavkovsky the best? Was that the right pick this time?
On its own, look, half the expert had Slav, half had Wright. Wright didn't even go number 3. So I would say criticize Phoenix for not taking Shane Wright. Because and that's where you have teams that fall in love with prospects. Phoenix is going to regret not taking Shane Wright because they didn't think they would get him. And they thought either he's going number 1 or number 2. He's not going to be here. We're getting Cooley, whatever. Nemec was a surprise. So, but they just fell in love with Cooley and their mind was set. Seattle's laughing. So Slav, would have been my pick? No. But what happened about 30 minutes after the Slav pick was the key to the Slav pick. The trade of Romanov to the Islanders for the 13th pick, and then the trade of the 13th pick and the 3rd or 4th rounder. There's a 3rd and a 4th rounder going to each team for Kirby Dach. So they had the center. So then people say, oh, that's why they picked the winger. They got their 21-year-old 6'4" centerman in Kirby Dach. So, but because everybody was scratching their heads, I thought there was a possibility. But when the trade went down, I said, okay, that makes sense. But my second instinct, because we're at pick number 7, I think, at the draft when it was announced, I'm there. Maybe they should have waited to see who was available at 13 before trading, because I would have preferred to have Nazar versus Dach myself on a rebuilding Habs.
Yeah.
But they probably didn't think there was any chance. And apparently, the rumor was they would have taken LiQWYD, whatever, the Vancouver pick at 13, not Nazard anyways. So then, okay. But the way everything went down, Slav is humongous. I saw him in an interview. His neck is, there's a reason. He's 238 pounds. His neck is a tree trunk. That guy is massive, and he's 18 years old, and he came in at 238, and he's shorter than the 6'4" that was advertised. So he's 10 pounds heavier, 1 inch shorter. So he's just massive. So look, with Kirby Dach and Slav, then it's okay. There's logic to that. There's thinking, forward thinking. And then, and the rest is all about the picks. Monahan was a shock. We traded Weber to Vegas for Dadonov. Dadonov, last year of his contract, $5 million. When we get to the trading deadline, keep half his salary. It's going to cost a contender maybe $1 million on their cap for the rest of the year. If he can score 10 to 15 goals, he's going to be... they're going to get a pick for him from a contender. Monahan, same deal, last year of his contract. So it's all going to be about trading for picks for the Habs. So like Weber, they actually probably going to get, instead of dumping a salary like Toronto did with Mazurek, like Edmonton did with Cassian, like everybody does, Marleau, again, Toronto. They dumped Weber's contract and got Dadonov, which was probably going to give them a 2nd or 3rd round pick. So instead of paying a pick, they're probably going to get a 2nd or 3rd rounder for Weber at the end of the day. So it's all about rebuilding. No hope for wins. The D is terrible. Edmonton is injured. So we have, okay, who in their right mind has David Savard as a first pairing D?
Well, a few years ago, Edmonton would have probably had David Savard as first pairing.
It's like David Savard and Mike Matheson are the first two Ds, and then you have kids. It's going to be a mess until Edmondson comes back. But even when he comes back, he's not a first pairing. So, and that's what's going to kill the Habs. And you saw it with Toronto in the preseason. They just, as soon as they cross the blue line, there's no resistance. So Montreal's D is awful, and yes, it goes back to the Edmonton days when you were desperately seeking defensemen. That's where we're at now. You know, we have good kids, Goulet. We have this monster that we got for free, but it's going to take a long time for us to put it all together, basically.
What are your thoughts, Frank, about Petrie leaving?
Again, we got Matheson, who's 7 years younger, fast. He's like a Swiss Army knife, you know. He can do a little bit of everything well. He's not dominant, but for a guy who wanted to leave with a big salary, we got a useful player out of it. Pittsburgh didn't want to give him up. They wanted to give Marino to the Habs, which they gave to New Jersey at the end of the day. But Hughes said, I don't care, I'll keep him. Matheson or nothing. So great trade. So Hugo, which is the short name for Kent Hughes and Gordon. So we combine them. Hugo, they're doing a great job in doing the rebuild the right way, which Vancouver should take notes on how to build a team, how to mesh, have people mesh together. The only problem now is we have 15 forwards to NHL contracts. So that'll be interesting what they're going to do with all that before in the next week. But yeah, there's no D. So expect Montreal to pick up Ds on waivers in the next week.
Yeah, with training cuts and camp cuts, there's going to be a lot of, fringe players on waivers, and there probably will be one or two that can help the Canadiens out.
Fringe players are going to be top 4 in Montreal.
Well, Edmonton's used to that. It hasn't been too long where that was the case here. Well, let's move on to Eric's team and the Toronto Maple Leafs. You might have heard about them once in a while. And in Toronto, Eric, what's going on in the offseason? What do you say?
Well, what do I say? It was a fairly quiet offseason as far as I'm concerned. I think it was very. I've already expressed the disappointment I have with the Campbell departure, and entirely owned by the Leafs. They easily could have done something about that. They chose not to. So the offense is fine. The defense is okay, and the goaltending is going to keep you interested because, I mean, my God, if there was good goaltending, you might as well just give the cup to the blue and white right now. So we'll see what happens. But, and it would be nice to win a cup when most people have colored televisions. So that'd be different than the last time we won a cup. So yeah, it's. I think it was a pretty quiet off season, to be brutally honest with you. Nothing that really stands out. I mean, there's been some preseason stuff, but again, it's preseason. I don't think anything really is coming that way. It's funny though, being a guy who lives out in the West, I'm hearing about, there was a local sportscaster. He used to play for the Oilers, Jason Strudwick, who said his biggest dream is that Matthews doesn't sign with re-sign with the Leafs, and he said he just wants that just so that all these Leaf fans will, be crushed and so on. And there's even rumors about, how, like I've seen stuff about, he loves Toronto and Toronto's his town and all this kind of stuff. So it's interesting. There is a little bit of, I think, concern regarding that when they, if they don't re-sign him. And I can't remember. I don't think they can re-sign him right now. But the
No,
day
next July 1st they can.
July 1st. If they don't sign him by July 1st, let's say 2:00, there's going to be like consternation considerably in Toronto. So yeah, you know what? Really not much to add. Go Leafs. Let's see how you do. Let's hope the goaltending holds up. This tandem thing, tough division, but you look at the predictions and the predictions, and not just from Toronto, but they look, I've seen them rank higher than the Oilers, which I find surprising when it comes to Stanley Cup odds and things like that. So, who knows? Cross your fingers, get through the first round. If we do make the playoffs, because according to Ryan, Ottawa might make it instead. Gross. But anyway.
Wouldn't that be something though? Oh my goodness. Dubas would never GM again in the league.
Yeah, KD would be done for sure, right? Well, and as was mentioned by Frank, if this doesn't happen, boom, where it's explosion time, and Shanahan, who has really stuck around for a long time in Leafland, because usually people in the upper echelon don't stick around that long. So this is do or die. Yeah, there's a lot of pressure this year for sure.
Yeah, the Shanna plan.
Yes, indeed. And it's a good plan, except it's not a quick plan. But there you go. But so
all right, and in the sake of time, Ryan and Frank will get to your Toronto talk next week when we talk about predictions and kind of where Toronto might fit in. But let's move on to the team that everyone's been waiting for us to talk about, and that is most of our Edmonton Oilers. And Ryan, Edmonton, we've talked about Edmonton a little bit and the moves that they've made. I'm not totally convinced they are a Stanley Cup finalist yet, but that's more for next week. I do like the drafting of Schaefer. I think he was a late round steal. I think he is going to be a good power forward type on the Oilers in the future. I do like the young guys coming up. Holloway's getting a chance. Tyler Benson's not really the player that everyone thought he would be, maybe a fourth liner at best right now. McLeod doing really well. He was re-signed for 1 year. They did bring in Ryan Murray, and Ryan, they signed Ryan McLeod and Ryan Murray. Edmonton really loves their Ryans, don't they? Tell us a little bit about the Oilers moves this offseason.
That's because of Ryan Smith. That's where it comes from.
Ryan Nugent-Hopkins.
Oh my God.
Ryan Jones.
It's odd. Thinking at this draft, we drafted Schaefer and just kind of, whatever. We drafted a guy. Maybe in a couple of years we'll see him play. It's odd going from 7 years ago where the first round pick was going to be playing to we're cheering for the guy we drafted 2 or 3 years ago to make the team now. It's just a weird experience that Oiler fans are feeling lately. But I'm ticked off. I'm ticked off at the Yamamoto signing and the Puljujärvi signing. I don't know why those guys couldn't take a little bit less to give a little more. I don't know why they needed to take the team to arbitration to try to squeeze as much out of that lemon as they can. I mean, maybe I'm a little less ticked off at the Yamamoto trade or signing just because he took the extra year. I mean, you got guys like Ryan McLeod who's taken damn near as low as he can just to make the team or just to get on the team. You have guys like Ryan Murray who signed at the minimum, I think, to just be a part of it. I don't think Puljujärvi or Yamamoto did enough or have done enough to warrant those contracts. That aside, I think Puljujärvi's out halfway through the season anyway. That contract, I can't say enough bad stuff about those two contracts. I'm excited to see Holloway. I think he'll be coming in hot. He's playing outstanding in the preseason. We got to see him play beside on Draisaitl's line last game, and he was exceptional. Not just making plays because he's playing against the other team's worst, but because he has the skill. He has the speed. He has a bit of size. He complements the good guys really well. Vander Kane, I'm surprised that he came in as low as he did. I was expecting about $6 million, so I'm happy to see that come in about $1 million less. I mean, maybe it's the fandom goggles on, but there's a real outside chance that we might possibly have 50 goal score or 350 goal scorers on the team. Maybe if everything goes as planned, that would be a heck of a good season. I like the defense. I like the little bit of a battle between Broberg and Niemelainen there for the sixth spot. I think you can't really go wrong with either one. They both bring different aspects to the game. I think Niemelainen might be a little more valuable with his size and how he wants to send people to the hospital with every hit. I think that'd be a little more valuable on our team than Broberg. Not saying that Broberg is useless, but I think he's just as good as just Niemelainen has that size. That's pretty valuable, functional size, I guess, as some people like to call it, like Kane and Nurse. And Campbell, I mean, saying earlier, I wasn't a fan of the 5x5. The last time we got together, I'm still not a fan of it. I think it'll be great for the first couple of years, but I think we're going to be paying for it for the last bit of the contract. I never like seeing teams spend on goalies. I mean, I'll put the question out there. Other than Vasilevsky, Hellebuck, and maybe the guy out in Anaheim. I keep on forgetting his name.
Gibson.
What other goalies are playing to their contract year after year?
Rangers. Shirts or whatever.
Sturkin, but he's what, 2 years in the league?
Yeah.
You have Bobrovsky making 10.5 in Florida, and he fell on his face for the first year of that contract. There's Price in Montreal making $10 million. That's just non-existent anymore. I just don't like seeing goalies getting paid just because they're such a wild card. I find I think it's hard to find consistency in them, but it's kind of nice not having to worry about whether or not Smith is going to give up the puck or Koskinen is going to let in the first shot. So it's a little bit more at ease this year for the goaltending. I mean, other than that, I think we're going to have a solid year. We might finish a little better. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. The feeling at camp is they're not happy with how last year ended. They're here to get a job done, and they want to get it done as fast as possible.
Yeah, I think. I'm happy with the Edmonton contract values that they gave out. I think 5x5 for Campbell, I think, is a great deal. Yeah, he's still kind of a little bit unproven and does have a little bit of injury concern in the last couple of years, but they needed something. Mike Smith has done. They have nothing really in the system. Skinner may potentially be a number one in a couple of years, but
that's why I want to see a less length of a contract for Campbell, is because I think Skinner is going to be the goalie of the future for us. Give it 2-3 more years. I think he'll be the number one.
Yeah, that's why I don't understand the 5 years. Campbell has 135 NHL games.
He's a new guy and he's old.
He's 29, I think.
31, I thought.
At 30 right now, he's going to be 31 in January. 135 games. And you give him $25 million for 5 years, and that's why I don't get. Fleury would have been a perfect bridge for Edmonton because Skinner looks like the real deal.
Yep.
And it's like, what do you do? Do you Corey Schneider Skinner? Because that's what happens to a lot of kids. Corey Schneider is 37. He was a primo prospect, primo goalie, but he dominated the league maybe 3 or 4 years. That's it in his career, because he was always the backup, always stuck behind Luongo, stuck behind everyone. And it's like, are you going to do that to Skinner? Because 5 years. How old is Skinner now? He's 23 or 24.
23, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so he's going to be 28.
Yeah.
You're going to Corey Schneider the guy. So I don't get the logic. Maybe Fleury didn't want to come to Edmonton. We don't know what happens with the free agency. But, as a fan, you go, oh, Fleury would have been a 2-year for less money, because they had trouble re-signing McLeod. And Puljujärvi is going to be gone before mid-year. He basically signed a contract to get traded.
Yeah.
But they had trouble signing McLeod. But if you had Fleury at 3.5, that would have solved that problem also. So I don't get the logic. Like, what's the end game?
I think
trade Skinner.
I think they want the tandem, the double-headed monster, but then you're going to have to pay both of them $5 million a year. I don't know. It's. I guess there's rumors that the cap is going up $10 million in the next few years, but do you really want to bank on that? Draisaitl is going to be up for renewal soon.
What about you, Eric? Chime in here. I know the Toronto Maple Leafs have been the farm team for Edmonton over the last few years, giving us Barry and Campbell and
Rich.
Hyman. We'll take Marner and we'll take Matthews for a year.
You're getting the playoff results too, eh? So don't toot your horn that much, huh? Getting Toronto players is not good for playoffs. I'm telling you that right now.
That's right.
What do you think, Eric? What do you think, Eric, about the Oilers and their moves? Puljujärvi, I agree. I don't think he'll be here long. I think the rumors of him not getting along with teammates, though, is false. I think it's the media that doesn't like Puljujärvi in Edmonton. But here he's just, recently with Kane and on a fishing trip. So I think there is a little bit of maybe awkwardness in his first couple years in Edmonton, but I think he's starting to fit in with his teammates. I think he's still here because McDavid is okay with him being here. There's a tough. I don't know where he's going to fit on the line, though, because if Holloway goes to the second line, Puljujärvi's not going to play third or fourth line, not big minutes anyway.
Puljujärvi's problem is he can't play with McDavid. He can't play with Draisaitl. So they tried. It doesn't mesh with the type of player he is. So he's stuck on the third line.
Yeah. And third line's already set with RNH and McLeod and I forget who the third guy is.
Fogel. That's a
Fogel. Yeah. So
No,
so Eric, what else do you have to say about the Oil?
Part, I think what I like the 5x5, to be honest with you. I think they got now there is a bit of a concern. As was mentioned, he's a late starter as a starter. So not a lot of games. Certainly hasn't been around a long time, but goalies are a different kind of breed at the best of times. They tend to be a little bit older before they can make it and make an impact. So I think Campbell will be fine. This allows Skinner to come up, and I'm thinking that it's going to be at least 70-30. I'm hoping even less for Campbell. So maybe 60-40, and then of course go from there, and that gives Skinner some time to actually develop. I mean, last year people wanted Skinner to be the starter. I remember that there was a lot of controversy. They wanted him to, and there's just no way they could do that. So
he got a shutout and they sent him to the farm.
Yeah, for sure, right? And so. I think it's good. I think it was a good signing on the Oilers' part. No, the Leafs are not their farm team. Thanks very much. That was just gross on your part, Glenn. And we'll see if I return for next week. I'll feel how offended I am. But anyway, yeah. So no, good on them. I think it was fine. I think it's a good signing, to be honest with you. I think he will prove that he is worth more than what he got. And
The only thing I
5 years.
the thing that's maybe the saving grace for me is that he's stable. He's not going to have a terribly awful game, and he might make some more saves than he should. That's
Yeah.
pretty much what.
The only concern is the injuries. Like he had trouble coming. He had a great start. Everything was good. He got injured, and then he faltered a bit, and that hurt him.
Never played more than 50 games in a season, so that's a concern.
That's
But
a concern.
the quality of the guy is his goal saves above average is very good, and it's people don't realize how good Campbell was on Toronto, because Toronto is not very good defensively, so he was left on his
What are
own
you
a lot
talking
of
about? They're
times.
a fantastic defensive team.
Yeah, okay. So he saved their butts a lot of the time. And Torts had a saying. He said something yesterday or the day before. He said he wanted his players on the Flyers to be aggressive, but smart aggressive. And he says, I don't care if we give up a 2-on-1. That's what the goalie's there for. Unfortunately, he doesn't realize he has Carter Hart back there. But Campbell was that for the Leafs.
Yes.
You know, his goals saved above average was top 10 in the league. So I don't disagree with the signing. It's just where does that leave Skinner in the grand scheme of things?
What defensive core do you like more, Edmonton or Toronto's?
Right now, that's tough, man.
I mean, I'm hearing rumors that they're going to try out Marner on defense in Toronto. I don't know how much.
Well, just because he's so great, that's all. I mean, come on, give it a rest. My God, the Oilers' defense is not that.
No, the top three is like Bouchard is coming into its own. He's going to dominate. Barry is like Quinn Hughes, he goes one way on the ice, and Darnell Nurse is a beast.
Oh, yeah, he's a beast at $10 million or whatever. That contract was ridiculous.
9.125.
Yeah, but he's still a beast. Then you look at Toronto, they have Riley, who's a stud, and he's a good two-way stud.
Yeah.
Then it's like, okay. They don't have the depth at the Toronto. That's their biggest problem. They have Giordano, for God's sakes. What is he, 39? Signed for less than $1 million.
Hey, come on, Chris Chelios played till what? He was like 62?
I thought he was 100.
Yeah, but come on. If you got Giordano, you don't have a great top six. It's like, so top three, Oilers probably get the edge to answer the question, but top six, Toronto probably has the edge, because 4, 5, 6 at the Oilers, like you're talking about these kids, 6'6", never played. That's what they're at, because they spent all their money elsewhere. So, and that's where you have to balance.
Those players, they're ripe and ready for the pick, and I don't think they're being forced into that position. I think they made room for those guys to battle for a spot.
We'll see. But we know one thing, the D is going to look better in Edmonton, because Murray and Samsonov, they're not going to give quality goaltending to the Leafs like Campbell did. So,
but that's okay, because all the Leafs, probably their lowest score is going to be like 6 or 7 goals a game. So it's okay. So they'll get 5 goals scored on them. Big deal. Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's going to be 80 scores with the Leafs.
I hope so.
Except when they play. Except against Montreal, then it's going to be 6-1, 7-2, 9-2, 9. We might get lucky at a 9-3. But I'll just say one thing about Edmonton and Toronto, and this applies more to Toronto. Every time Tampa has won the cup, you saw players with broken ribs, like serious injuries, that played the last game. That's what's missing. Guys that...
Draisaitl played on one leg and got 17 points in 5 games against Calgary.
Yeah, That's one guy. Okay,
Nurse
but
had a torn hip flexor.
yeah.
So I mean,
But,
they're playing, but
yeah, but it's the whole freaking lineup. Stamkos, Kucherov, like it doesn't matter who you are in Tampa, you were dead. No, Colorado, the same thing. Landeskog injured, comes back to the playoffs and injured through the beginning of the season. Warriors, and you look at winning teams that had these Warriors and go back to the Oilers. They get killed by the Islanders. Why? They didn't have Warriors. And then it clicked. Kevin Lowe said, when we lost against the Islanders, I understand what it took to win. And Kevin Lowe was one of these guys that would go through a wall. And you look like Gallagher, Weber, Price. They're that type of players that Toronto doesn't have. 2 days ago, Nylander scored preseason against the Habs of all teams, and he celebrated like he won the Stanley Cup in a preseason game against the freaking Habs. And that's the problem. The last time they won round one, fans were in the street with their tinfoil cup. It's like, no, they don't know how to win. And Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, never, he's not a winner. He wasn't a winner in the Islanders. They're not winning. They're good, great players. 60 goals for Matthews. Comes to the playoffs. When you win 3-1, you're supposed to learn and become a winner. They were winning 3-1 against Boston. Jagger tells his teammates, this is not over. Boston comes back and win. They were winning 3-1 against Montreal. It's like Toronto, the players are not learning the difficult lessons. Tampa got swept by Columbus. Swept in the first round against Columbus. They learned and then they won. It's the sandpaper going through the walls. And I see some of these players saying, ooh, my little pinky hurts. I'm not going to play. Whereas you have to have guys that are like Weber. What Weber and Price did when they went to the finals against Tampa, nobody knew. They were both on one leg. A goalie on one leg and a defenseman on one leg. Both their careers are finished. And they willed their team. They were 24th in the league, the last qualifier in the COVID season. And they put their teams on their back. And that's the type of players you need to win in the playoffs. And the Toronto doesn't have it. Oilers has a few pieces, but Kane is too selfish to be that type. He's sandpaper, but he doesn't have the winning mentality because he's selfish. He's proven it throughout his career. So, and that's where you build a winner. You have to mesh all these players. And Tampa, they won multiple times because their stars go to war.
Yeah, just like Detroit in the early 90s, right? That
Yzerman, Fedorov, Lidstrom, they would leave everything on the ice. But Matthews, no, he's good at smirking when he scores. But no.
Yeah, it's definitely we're all looking forward to the hockey season.
This is his year. This is his year to go to the wall. That's what I'm thinking. I think he's going to come and he's going to be tough. I tell you.
Well, maybe next year will be a contract year. Maybe next year.
Maybe we'll see what happens. But no, I don't disagree. I think that's a good point. There's the regular season hockey, and then there's the playoff hockey, and the Leafs have to. There has to be a lot more sandpaper, and as of right now, as a team, there's very little sandpaper. They'll be flashy and so on, and it'll be great on Hockey Night in Canada on a Saturday night, and everybody will be falling over themselves to say, wow, look at that goal. But we'll see how it develops. And but if it stays like it is, I don't disagree. I think it'll be a first rounder again. So that's the way it goes.
Yeah, because you see Boston, Bergeron,
Boston stuff. Yeah.
Like even Torrey Krug, man, he's just 5'8", and he played bigger than his size. And McAvoy is the same thing. He's out because he gave his body. It's like you see the winners from the past. they have warrior mentality from top to bottom.
That's right.
And Matthews, Tavares, top two centers, they don't.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think with that, we're going to kind of wrap it up there. We've gone longer than I thought we would, but it was great conversation. And like I said, Frank, it's always nice getting that kind of Eastern perspective, because sometimes out West, we just, we play Homer a lot and favor our team out here.
How many cups out West total?
I think we have
Calgary, and then Edmonton is 6, right?
5.
Yeah.
5?
Only 5.
So 5 plus 1 in Calgary?
1 in Calgary, yeah.
And that's it.
Well, Vancouver came close, eh?
Yeah.
A couple times, yeah.
We're not playing horseshoes here.
But Frank, we haven't been in the league as long as you have.
Yeah,
so
Frank.
there you go. Do the mathematics, and it probably works out that
Yeah,
way.
let's count from 1979 on.
All right, to end off, guys, let's do a quick kind of MLB prediction, because the Blue Jays again are in the playoffs for the first time since I think 2017. And what do you think? How do you see these playoffs going in the MLB? They start on Friday. The Blue Jays do have all 3 games in Toronto. It's a little different playoff format that I'm used to. So Seattle's coming to Toronto for 3 games maximum. And then the winner of that series will go on to Houston, the number 1 ranked team in the AL. And out West, we have the Dodgers, Atlanta, number 1 and 2 ranked, and then Cardinals, Philadelphia, the Mets, and the Padres. So we'll start with you, Eric.
Hold on. The 1 game suicide game was stupid. I'm glad they changed it, because it made no sense. It's like you have to choose your pitchers to get to the suicide game, but then your pitcher can't pitch the most important game. There's no more Randy Johnson, where he went 2 games in a row back in the day. So that's why I think this is a good format. More playoff teams by doing this format. So I think kudos to Major League Baseball. They adapt and get modern, whereas some other leagues don't.
Yeah. The only thing I would say is I'm surprised they went to a best of 5 in the Final 4 and not tried to go to 7 games. Like it would have been nice to have 7 games, but they decided to go best of 3, best of 5, and then best of 7.
Yeah, they don't want to play in the snow.
especially in Toronto.
It's
right,
like the NHL playing in July. It doesn't make any sense, So,
what do you see, Eric?
Okay, who do I see? I'll go really quick. Yeah, good on the Jays. Well done. I think they'll take Seattle, although I would have preferred they were playing Tampa. I think it's going to be harder against Seattle. I think Seattle's very similar to Toronto. It's just Toronto's a little bit further ahead at that stage. But at the end of the day, and when we go to the finals, and I'll go right to the ALCS, it's going to be the champion is going to be the New York Yankees, I hope, because I hate Houston. And it's going to be the Dodgers on the other side. So that's who's in the World Series. And so we get that Dodgers, Yankees, and that's great. MLB would be salivating over that. And the guys that hit office. And Dodgers win 6.
So you have the Dodgers beating Houston in 6?
Nope, sorry. The Yankees are going to beat Houston. And so Dodgers beating the Yankees in 6.
Okay. Ryan, how about you? I know you don't follow baseball, a lot, but give us your opinion anyway.
Is that really the playoff tree? Is it only 8 teams that play for the championship?
Yeah.
It used to be 4.
It used to be 4.
It really used to be only 4.
I don't know, just as a non-fan of the sport looking in, it seems like they could probably add 16 teams to the playoffs, but I don't know. I guess just as a Canadian, I got to go for Toronto. I got to cheer for Toronto as much as I can, as much as it pains me. Other than that, I really don't have any knowledge outside of that.
Okay. Frank.
Yeah. the chokers galore. Are they not gonna choke this year? Which is the Dodgers, always favored. I'm hoping. I like the Dodgers. San Diego injuries. They almost didn't make it, so I don't think. I think the Mets are gonna beat them. What's the other one? Philly, St. Louis. No opinion. I think the worst case scenario for Major League Baseball is Houston Atlanta final because it's like all in the South. No West Coast, no Northeast. But I'm hoping for Yankees and Dodgers also. And I don't know. The Dodgers always choke. I don't know what's their problem. They've been dominant for years now, and they just can't seem to go over that hump.
Okay. And I'm going to call. I'm going to
like the sandpaper.
I think Toronto will beat Seattle. I think they'll lose in 4 or 5 games to Houston. I don't think they can match up against Houston. But I'm going to call for Cleveland coming out of the East. I think Cleveland is going to be the dark horse and make it to the finals. And I think they're going to go up against the Dodgers. I think the Dodgers are going to at least make it to the finals. And I think it's going to be a close finals. But I'm going to go Cleveland in 7 for the World Series. So go big or go home. That's how I see the finals going. Well, guys.
Well, they have a new name, so that's going to be good for the history books.
That's right.
Yeah, the Guardians.
Every time I saw the Guardians, when I looked at box scores, because I don't follow baseball like I used to, since the Expos are not around, but every time I saw the Guardians, I go, who are they? It's the same thing with the NFL, the Commanders. Like, who's the Commanders again?
Yeah. And
so,
are the Blackhawks going to be next to follow suit? Are we going to lose that one of the best jerseys in the NHL? Well, on that note, guys, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. It's nice to get back to hockey after a couple months off, and we'll be back next week for a live episode. We won't go as long next week. We'll just do some predictions. We'll look at some of the games that are played that night and opening day rosters. Thank you so much for everyone.
By the way, mine's easy, eh? Habs last in the Atlantic. That's a given.
Well, there you go. Frank doesn't have to show up next week. He's already made his prediction. So, and then, Ryan's already said Ottawa is going to take out the Leafs, for a playoff spot. So
I'll show up for the rest. I'll show up for the rest of the predictions, but the Habs in the Atlantic, it's done. There's no way in hell the hockey gods are going to make them finish above 7th.
Well, the good news, Frank, is that the Habs are going to get Bedard then.
No.
Chicago's going to race him for that one.
No. Hey, Chicago sent Lucas Reichel down to the AHL, for God's sakes. This guy had 57 points in 56 games. He's ready for the NHL. And it goes back to Buffalo with McDavid. Every time a goalie won a game for Buffalo, he got traded or he got wavered. They went through 8 goalies. They traded everybody that won a game to get McDavid, and the gods were against them because they didn't win the lottery. They got Eichel, but Chicago, they got Mazurek and what's this other chump that was in Stalock from Edmonton because he never played for Edmonton. It was a contract dump because he was out with long COVID. He had heart problems, whatever. But that's their tandem, Mazurek and Stalock. And then Lucas. No, you're playing too well. Oh, and then the excuse is, we'd rather him play 20 minutes a night in the AHL and dominate again than playing the 4th line. What? Domi and Anastasiou is on your first line, for God's sakes. 2 reclamation projects, and poor Kane. He's gonna go. Should I pass to Domi or Athanasiou, who couldn't even fucking play for the LA Kings? No. All right, I'll keep the puck then. I'll try to 1-on-5, baby. Or when Seth Jones is on the ice, 2-on-5. Oh my God, what a mess. So no, we're not getting Bedard. unless we get lucky on the lottery. But
All
Phoenix,
we need is 11%.
yeah, and Phoenix playing in their shoebox.
Yeah.
Give me a. This is a complete and utter joke that the NHL would allow. It's like playing in your neighborhood rink.
Yeah.
So, and they suck. So Chicago and Phoenix are going to be the last two teams. So if Montreal gets Bedard, we're going to go from third, fourth, or fifth all the way to first. But these two teams have it locked in. It's not even. But Chicago, the record is the Quebec Nordiques with 31 points in the season.
Oh, okay.
And Chicago has the overtime loser point that they might get once in a while. 0-0 games, because they're going to play Phoenix. But even with the loser point, they might not get to the Quebec Nordiques 31 points. That's how bad they're going to be.
Well, and that's a good segue for what we're going to be talking about next week, folks. So tune in next week when we hear Frank tell us how he really feels about the Chicago Blackhawks. So thanks everyone for tuning in and watching us. And obviously Frank is feeling a lot better towards the end of this broadcast. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Frank, for
thanks for having me.
All the insights.
All right.
All right. See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.